I merely wish to reach the end of this road. Welcome back, Lore Seekers. This is 7G, and for today's lore video today, we actually will be talking about Furious Blade and the actual lore path that he actually has to take to become who he is. This lore video will actually probably be the shortest one out of all the classes so far. This is because Furious Blade path is pretty much straightforward and simple, and doesn't really go in depth as compared to the other classes. However, it's still pretty interesting to hear about the stories of Furious Blade and how it sparks his interest in pursuing his pure swordmanship instead of relying his arm. Without further ado, let's straight into the lore video of Furious Blade. Raven's new Nasod arm is powerful, too powerful in fact, that he has chosen not to rely on it. He is afraid that using it might overpower his consciousness and cause another threat towards the kingdom of Velder. Unleashing the pent-up rage within him from the past will only lead to destruction. His willpower to resist the usage of his Nasod arm has turned back to mastering his old swordmanship and become a sword taker. From this lore from sword taker, we would actually have to look back towards Raven's history when he actually acquired the Nasod arm, and having this Nasod arm actually turn him into the mercenary called the Black Crows, and this eventually lead to terrorizing of the Pongos in Alteria. And at the same time, he was blindly fighting against the kingdom that he once served before when he was the captain of the Crow Mercenary Knights. Realizing the destructive power that his Nasod arm created, he decided not to use it because of the fact that he actually once turned against the kingdom, and that alone created an unforgivable sin that he will never forget or ever atone for. That was actually until he actually met with the Elsword party, and with his blade and his arm, he actually decided to take arms with them as a way to atone his sins and actually fulfilling their party's goal of finding the El Crystal that went missing. Choosing not to use his arm as a result, this actually led him to perfecting his swordmanship that he uses when he was human. Now we can actually jump into his second job advancement. In this case, it's actually going to be Blade Master, and according to his lore tab, Raven's decision to resist using his Nasod arm has pushed him to further advance his swordmanship. Taming his rage has enlightened his mind and body to the point that where he moves with the wind and uses his blade as a sixth sense. Raven's advancements toward Blade Master will unleash swift, devastating fencing skills that inflict fatal wounds on his enemy's vital points. He leaves his enemies injured and numb until their bodies decide to give up. Continue to resist the Nasod arm's overwhelming power and dominate your foes with the advanced skills of a Blade Master. As we can actually see, the advancements that Raven has gone through with his swordmanship, and the actual will to suppress his usage of his Nasod arm is pretty impressive at this point. The only ironic thing with this class is, the description says that he actually used fencing skills, but in the controversy in the gameplay, he uses more slashes like a katana would, which is pretty similar to light jutsu, which involves quick, precise draws from the sheath striking the opponent and removing the blood from the sword before resheathing, as compared to fencing skills which actually involve a lot of stabbing. And all of this is actually reflected by his skills such as Extreme Blade, Shockwave, Sonic Slash, and Finishing Slash, just to only show his advancement in sword skills. Finally, we arrive to his last job advancement. In this case, it's going to be Furious Blade, and according to the lore tab, a job class that leaves his Nasod body parts behind to reach new heights as a new human swordsman. Slashing enemies with utmost speed, Raven has chosen the path of swordmanship and reached his limits. However, the lingering memories of his past human self seems to hinder with further advancing in this craft. If I were to gain my fully human body, perhaps I'll be able to bring my swordmanship to another level. I will hesitate no longer. To reach the epitome of his swordmanship, Raven remodels his Nasod arm to be almost identical to his other, still human arm. There is no more hesitation, only following this new path that he has forged. At this point as Furious Blade, Raven actually hesitant to use his Nasod arm, which was his major obstacle to overcome in order to perfect his swordmanship. All this time when he was Blade Master, he suppressed his urges to use his Nasod arm in fear that one day his Nasod arm will be able to overcome him. However, at this point when he was Furious Blade, he actually decides to use his Nasod arm as an extension of his swordmanship. This actually led him to remodel his Nasod arm to make it more familiar to a human hand, and as reflected in his official portrait, he's actually holding his blade on his left hand rather than his right hand as he usually does for his other portraits. His hyperactive cold final blade symbolized that he found harmony between his Nasod arm and his human arm, and actually makes it into a powerful attack. And that concludes the lore video for the Furious Blade. I hope you guys enjoyed this video for Furious Blade, I am working with other lore videos such as Centurion, and probably the next class that I probably would do next is actually going to be Blue Hen, probably the most requested lore video from you guys specifically. And until that happens, I'll try to do my best to work on those and try to get as soon as possible. And for now though, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice day.